Okay, hello everybody. Today's date is February 9th, 2021, and my name is, or 2022, and my name is Leslie Williams. Now, I wanted to make this video in order to give some updated exposures concerning an ongoing and very relevant aspect of the gang stalking targeting of me out here in La Jolla, California, which is a affluent suburb located within the county of San Diego, California, a state within the United States. Um, so, this particular technique that I'm going to expose in this particular video, if you don't know anything about gang stalking crimes, this is not a video to educate you about the program of gang stalking, which is actually international. In fact, gang stalking programs are larger than NATO. Make no mistake about it. And you'll discover this when you do thorough research about this crime. You'll discover victims all over the world are enduring this crime, perpetrated in the same exact identical way, at least generally, concerning the overall implementation of it. So just bear with me. Now remember, this has got a specific subject matter in this video. This is not a video to educate you about the program of gang stalking. This particular video is a video to educate you about a subject matter that's being employed within the crime of gang stalking, the program of gang stalking, that I endure on a daily basis. Now, so first of all, I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to give you 1 minute to get up and go get a pen and piece of paper, because it's better for you to write down my descriptions, so when you have that extra free time during any 24-hour period, you can just get online, reference what you write down, and do a fast research. Because the way our brain interlocks data, when you continue to research my descriptions of my YouTube videos dedicated to this account, and what's exposed, descriptions concerning this crime and what I expose that's related to it, over time your brain will interlock the data together. Now, most of my videos give very good descriptions of what's going on in gang stalking crimes, including some of the most sophisticated aspects of it, explained in layman's terms. Because one of the biggest motives that I have, being a whistleblower concerning this crime, is to help my fellow man. That comes even before the justice that I know I deserve and my fellow gang stalking victims deserve. Because there's an extreme likelihood I'll never see that justice within my lifetime. Okay? And as God is my witness, I do not want to see anybody affected with this crime. That obviously includes future targets, and especially the children and teenagers. Because this crime is literally massive in scope. Oh, absolutely. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through this crime without at least educated knowledge, so they can better understand what could be affecting them, their loved ones, their life, their property, their well-being, and so on. If somebody would have walked up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and educated me even about just 30% of this crime, I would have probably have suffered, I would not have suffered at least 40% of the crimes perpetrated against me in the way that they were, because I would have known what to look out for. I would have been able to recognize certain things that were going on, instead of those particular techniques in those moments and times affecting the crimes that they did. And so always remember this, that one of the main reason why I expose what I expose is to try and protect the human family. So listen to me very carefully. Now, and I'm going to talk fast in this video too, to try and get as much data incorporated within it. So when you go to Google and you type in at Google gang stalking and the sensitization method, you're going to discover that gang stalking victims are sensitized to specific stimuli. Those types of stimuli are, but not limited to, color coding, sounds, even specific types of identical repeated actions. Okay? So, words and phrases, color coding, sounds, and even specific identical repeated acts, which basically the aforementioned is also perpetrated through actions. Now, the sensitization method of gang stalking seems like a simple enough when you thoroughly research it, you're going to conclude, okay, because when you see the amount of Google generated responses you get, and you're getting a lot of information through YouTube as well, you're going to conclude it's going on, because there's no way that 98.99% of all reporting victims who have never talked to each other are all sharing the same story concerning the general applied techniques. You know, hundreds, tens of thousands of people online, openly exposing color coding connected to gang stalking, yet the vast majority of these people have never talked to each other. So it's going to be outwardly obvious to you that there's a program in play here that's running on a general template of applied techniques, methods, and tactics, and much more. So, with that being said, in this particular video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and by the way, you should also research the direct conversation method and the dark neural linguistic programming, DNLP, connected to gang stalking as well. Because the direct conversation methods and the DNLP can also be incorporated and synthesized within how some of the sensitization methods are employed. Now, just hear me out. Now, the color coding that is propped up around gang stalking victims, each victim, when they are presented with the colors that the host of this crime wants them to be sensitive to, they will prop it up in the target's environment on a massive scale. Because in order for sensitization to form in the victim's mind to a specific color, and remember, this is only one applied technique applied through the sensitization method of gang stalking, it's all got to do with brain entrainment and remote neural monitoring, hacking, which then results in remote neural monitoring, latching, manipulation, brain stimulation, and much more. So the main goal of the community-based harassment, which is where these applied techniques are propped up through, but even though you can experience brain entrainment through remote technologies like voice-to-skull, ELF broadcasting, the microwave hearing effect, and remote neural monitoring itself. But when it comes to the applied, absolutely. But when it comes to the applied technique of gangs and color coding can take place through the whatever is transmitted into the visual cortex of the victim. Auditory entrainment can take place through the sound tech that is used on gang stalking victims. Now, getting back to the color coding that is propped up through the community-based harassment, which is directly connected to the sensitization method of gang stalking, first let me give you some statements that you can view as a preliminary foundation that will then be built on by my follow-up statements, and then I will conclude my statements. So you can have at least a fast, very preliminary, general understanding concerning one aspect of why color coding is occurring, and it's a very relevant aspect, actually. So let's say you got a gang stalking victim who is experiencing community members being propped up around them. Hold on one second. And these community members are told to wear something, carry something, even drive their cars that are black and white, carry something, wear something that is black and white checkers, black and white stripes, black and white waves, on any part from head to toe. A hat, pants where they'll have the black and white stripes down the side of the leg, black and white shoes, black and white purse, black and white balloons. They'll even go that far, literally. Okay, black and white purses, black and white scarves, anything they're wearing that is outwardly visible to a person who is standing in the field of the view, anything that can be seen in your normal field of view of a human being, they will prop it up so these things can be seen by the victim. So let me just explain to you really fast, and again, remember, these are preliminary statements. Whenever the eye processes, when you do research at Google and YouTube, extensive research at Google and YouTube, concerning how the brain processes visual images, okay, especially patterns, okay, because remote neural monitoring, it thrives and survives on patterns, which is why you got the sensitization method of gang stalking and the other repeated identical techniques that are applied against the victim, around the victim, and at times directly towards the victim. Okay, patterns are needed for remote neural monitoring, deciphering, for integration completion on their end, pertaining to they're seeing what the victim sees, they're seeing what the victim hears, and as a direct result, remote neural monitoring is deciphering that data on their end. And so the remote neural monitoring and especially when it comes to brain entrainment, it needs identical repetition in order to create a coherent pattern of thought, and for whatever is processed visually and auditorially, it's going to have specific markers, identical markers for the data on their end. So it's got to be identical, and it's got to be something that they know can be distinguished by and through, when it comes to the color coding, by and through the optical nerve. So what you want to do is you want to go to Google and YouTube, and you want to, and trust me, it's not going to be hard for you to understand. Just trust me on that. Go to Google and YouTube and research, one, how the eyeballs and the retina and the optical nerves process visual information concerning colors, and just as importantly, concerning pattern recognition of colors. Now, that has to do with the rods and the cones, okay, that I believe are in the retina. And then, so when you look at, if you were to look and see, like, let me show you this right here. Now, this is black and white, but it's a very dim shade of it. So if you were to visualize this as being a deep black, like that's deep black right there. If you were to view this black part of this old bandana, it's actually just a piece of cloth, as being as dark as that, and then the white being as white as that, then what you got to understand is that when the human eyeball and its mechanisms are processing color density in specific light settings, they got to be able to see that color density on their end, ratio to the light of the environment that the victim is in when the victim is processing these colors. That's why color coding and color coded patterns are so massively needed in remote neural monitoring data interpretation, because they know that the cones and the rods in the eyes are dedicated to distinguishing specific light colors and their densities as the victim is in a specific light setting. So the deeper the color density of whatever you see in a specific light setting is going to assure them their capability of being able to extract that data that the victim is processing in reference to what they're seeing visually related to the color codes. They got to be able to make sure that that data is sent back to them in a coherent way. Now, you should also understand that there's an extreme possibility, I'm like 99% sure, that when ultrasonic sound is being processed in the ears of the victim, there is an extreme likelihood that ultrasound is being used. See, because ultrasound is sound. So let me just backtrack on my statement here for a second so I can include a specific relevant matter pertaining to ultrasound. I'm sure that once you become an adult, you've heard of how pregnant women will go get an ultrasound. And when she goes to get an ultrasound, she goes into that doctor's office, and she'll lay down on a table, or she'll lay down on a chair, and the nurse or the doctor will rub this kind of like gel type substance on her stomach, because the woman wants to see how well her baby's doing, okay, medically. So they'll rub cool gel type thing on the stomach, and then they'll put an ultrasound type of device, you can call it like a wand, and rub it up on the part of the stomach where the gel was applied. This enables the ultrasound to pick up the heartbeat and maybe even the breathing, but at least the heartbeat, but it will also show a visual image on the monitor of the fetus itself. So what does that tell you? That tells you that an ultrasound device can process sound and visual images. So when you look at how ultrasonic sound is used in gang-stalking crimes, ultrasound and ultrasonic sound and infrasound is used in gang-stalking crimes, and ultrasound can also be used, is heavily reported to be a conduit for voice to skull. Research that to gang-stalking, oh absolutely. And you should also know that most of the reports concerning voice to skull is where the victim is forced to hear identical, repeated, loop statements, critical statements, demeaning statements, harassment, sections of songs, okay, and much more. So when you look at an ultrasound wave can have an offset carrier wave that is responsible for transferring images And then you have the original way that's dedicated to the sound itself. So if you have a gang stalking victim who's enduring ultrasound, but even though it's called ultrasonic sound in gang stalking crimes, research ultrasonic sound bone conduction in gang stalking, you can easily know, you can easily deduce. You should also research how ultrasound can be remotely brought up. It can interface with a person remotely. Okay, just research remote ultrasound and how it can monitor the organs of a human being from a remote distance. Oh, absolutely. And so, what are two of the biggest main things that's going on with remote neural monitoring and gang stalking? They're monitoring the visual and auditorial cortex, okay, and memory and memory mapping and memory stimulation. So, now I'm going to share a little bit of information pertaining to my targeting. This crime of gang stalking made me homeless, and they started massive color coding. Color coding has always been going on in my targeting out here in San Diego, but it became extremely prevalent in the past 3 years, okay? And the main colors that they're propping up along my routes are black and white and blue and white, but they've also went out of their way to try and sensitize me to the color red, orange, bright orange, the type of orange that you would see public workers who might be doing road work on a road, concerning what their vests are colored, you know, those worker vests that they wear, and even that type of bright green, okay? Because you got to remember, they got to prop up colors that they know will be distinguished and processed through the optical nerve of the victim that they're interfacing with. They're interfacing with the optical nerve and the visual cortex with remote neural monitoring. Oh, absolutely. So they got to be able to set up colors that are going to be bright enough for the brain to process through the optical nerve and the retina's eye functions themselves. So when I was, this crime of gang stalking intentionally made me homeless from 4 apartments in Michigan, 1 in Tennessee, and so when I moved out here in San Diego, from Connecticut. Went to Connecticut for 4 months from Michigan in 2011. Came out to San Diego in August of 2011. And in around 2018, they started, late 18, I think it was when I first started really noticing it. I was utilizing a wooded area that I labeled, and this is going to sound a little funny, I labeled it the octopus tree location because there was a tree on that property that literally, no joke, it literally looked like an octopus. Now, me being a woman, I'm not going to verbally state the exact geographical location of a wooded area that I might be staying at or utilizing or going to rest at to be by myself to avoid community-based harassment. I'm not going to showcase that within my videos for legal reasons, security reasons, and strategic reasons. So what I do is I find a landmark on the property where I go to, and this particular property had a tree on it that literally looked like an octopus. I mean, if you saw this tree, you would say, okay, I could absolutely see that. And it was huge, too. So I was utilizing an area in La Jolla, again, which is located in San Diego County, that was where there was an octopus tree right on the property. A tree that looked like one. Hold on 1 second. Okay. And I wear a running recording digital tape recorder that's running and recording on me 99% of the time. And so what I do sometimes when I'm by myself is I'll verbally make statements in my tape recorder, I'll make predictions, I'll make verbal logs, statements logging my experiences, I'll make verbal statements into it, talking about this crime, talking about aspects of it, and so on and so forth. So when I was at the octopus tree location between 2018 and 2020, okay, I was making statements in my tape recorder when I was doing, I was there doing work and so on. And I would make statements in my tape recorder, openly talking in my tape recorder. And remember this, tape recorders run by electronic time and date stamp. And these particular tape recorders, they have the ability to put microcards in them. So once you take that microcard out, you can put another one in when the internal memory itself becomes full. So trust me when I say I got over 70 different audio files on at least probably 15 different microcards on massive amounts of dates, openly showing me state, not just at the wooded area that I called the octopus tree location, but along my routes as well. And you'll understand this in a second. So imagine you being in a wooded area in 2018, 19, and 20, and you're by yourself, and you're making statements in a digital tape recorder that runs by date and time. and you on at least 70 occasions you made statements showing you openly state that they're propping up people along my routes to wear black and white bicycle helmets, black and white clothes, okay, black and white bikes even. Now, when I was at the Octopus Tree location, there was on many dates, probably at least on 30 different dates, detailed and discussed by me in 30 separate audio files on different dates showing me state that these psycho maggots are propping up people to go directly by that Octopus Tree location and have them wear black and white purposely. So then there was even at least 12 of those dates where when I would go to exit that area, people wearing black and white would literally ride their bike right in front of me, less than a foot away from me, okay, because it was right off a road. So then on subsequent dates and dates before these incidents, I was talking about how people wearing black and white color coding were being propped up, not just along my routes, but also at that wooded area, and even when I'm walking down the street with my bike. So these statements were made in 2018, 19, and 20. Now listen to this. So one day I left the Octopus Tree location, and I was walking down a street heading towards a bus stop so I could catch that bus in order to take it to a Vons grocery store located off of Regents Road and Arabia Street in La Jolla, California. Vons grocery store. And so once I got on this bus, what I did was the bus was approaching the very last intersection that it approaches, that is right before the bus stop that I get off at, and then I cross the street and Vons is right there. And so the bus itself, so by the time right before that bus gets to that intersection, there was probably at least 100 occasions where I would get up out of my seat and stand there with my duffel bag and my backpack on, and because the bus is at the intersection, and as soon as the bus turns, when the light turns green, the bus stop is less than 20 feet off of that corner. So whenever the bus reaches that intersection, this has happened on at least 100 occasions, I would get up from my seat and stand there waiting for the bus to turn, and then the bus would immediately stop. So right as soon as that bus was approaching that intersection, about 6 bicyclists pulled up in front of us. Now, if you ever get on a MTS bus out here in San Diego, excuse me, please, what you'll notice is that MTS buses, like most buses, have extremely big windows. And when I would get up out of my seat to stand right behind the bus driver, because my bus stop was right off the intersection, once the light turned green and he made the turn, it was 20 feet off the intersection, off the corner. So as he's approaching that intersection, he hit it, and there was a red light. 6 bicyclists were in front of us, and at least 5 of those bicyclists were wearing identical black and white helmets. And so I literally just hear me out. So I literally made a statement in my tape recorder saying, don't you think it's a little bit weird that 5 of these bicyclists have black and white helmets? And the bus driver said, yeah, I do. That's a little bit strange, right? All right, now hold on one second. Hold on one second. All right, now hold on one second. Bear with me. And the bus driver even said, yeah, that's a little strange. And so the bicyclist and the bus waited for the light to turn green. So then the light turns green. The bicyclist went ahead of us. And then the bus made a left. And again, the bus stop was 20 feet off of that intersection. So as soon as it made a left, it was already beginning to stop at the bus stop. The bus stopped. I took my bike off the bus. I then walked across the street and then went through the parking lot in front of the bank, and then Vons is in that same parking lot. So then I walk my bike along the parking lot, and then I go to prop up my bike at the spot that I always was locking my bike up at, which was right next to a water machine. That was right off the front door of the Vons grocery store itself, and those same bicyclists were standing out there. 2 or 3 of them were in the store, and the other 2 or 3 were standing outside guarding the bikes. Those bicyclists being the same bicyclists that were in front of the bus. Now, as I walk up and I notice them, I said in my tape recorder, these bicyclists, the ones who were wearing black and white, are now standing off the front door at Vons, right by where I always lock up my bike. And as soon as I approached them, they were caught on tape saying gang stalk and suck dick, or gang stalk and oh my god, which is the identical words and phrases that is identically repeated along my routes everywhere I went for the last 11 years, okay, because it's now 2022, caught on 8,800 audio files. Now, what's important about this? Now, memory serves me correctly, this happened in mid or late 2020. What's relevant about this is that, remember, remote neural monitoring is dedicated to auditory and visual brain entrainment, which is why they're repeating identical words, phrases, and sounds along my routes. The visual entrainment is related to the color coding. So in order to make sure, and they would do the same thing at the Octopus Tree location too. I said in my tape recorder on those subsequent dates that the vast majority of the people that are going by my wooded area and wearing black and white are also saying gang stalk. So when I'm walking towards Bonds and I see them, I'm like 20 feet away from the area where the front of Bonds is, and I see him, I said in my tape recorder that these same bicyclists who were in front of the bus are standing right next to where I locked my bike up at. And as soon as I approached them, at least one of them said either gang stalk and suck dick or gang stalk and oh my god. Right? The same thing that's been caught on 8,800 audio files being said around me everywhere I went, including inside and outside of that Bonds. And so what I said to them was, hey, I like your black and white bike helmets. Okay? And they laughed, and I think one of them said something like, yeah, cool. Right? Now, if you say to somebody who's not wearing a black and white helmet, black and white bike helmet, hey, I like your black and white bike helmet, and they're not wearing one, they're going to say, what are you talking about? So they were caught saying gang stalking, oh my god, which again has been massively caught on 8,800 audio files everywhere I've went, and 90% of everywhere I've lived in San Diego since 2011. Now, I identified them on the bus to the bus driver so I could get the bus driver's acknowledgement that they were wearing them. Then they were the same bicyclists that were standing right outside of Bonds entrance, directly right next to where I always lock up my bike when I go to Bonds. And as I was approaching them, they were caught on tape saying gang stalk and either gang stalk suck dick or gang stalk oh my god. And then when I approached them, I said, hey, I like your black and white helmets. And they said, yeah, cool. Something along those lines. So that right there proves I was always telling the truth about the black and white helmets at the wooded area. Now, black and white is color coding connected to gang stalking sensitization method, which is directly connected to what gets processed in the eyes pertaining to color density for the sake of the visual cortex distinguishing it that remote neural monitoring is interfacing with. Because the rods and cones in the eyes is what's dedicated to transferring the color densities of black and white and the black and white patterns that are presented along my routes. Now you'll clearly understand how this is important, and I'm being massively targeted as I'm talking to you. Literally, the top of the head and to the right temple. And I've been heavily targeted to the left back cranium all day today. I'm in massive, at a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's at least a massive oscillating 8. Okay? So I wanted to bring this to your attention because I still got these audio files. Because think about it, if you're in a wooded area and you say on at least 70 prior dates that they're propping up black and white bicyclists right along my wooded area, and they're wearing black and white helmets and wearing black and white clothes, and even some of them were caught saying gang stalk on tape, okay, as they rode by, and then you catch this at a grocery store that you go directly to from the wooded area, anybody with 2 brain cells would know that what they were doing was trying to create auditory and visual entrainment at the same time. So I wanted to make a video about this in order to be able to... I already made one video about it a couple years ago, but I wanted to make an updated video about this